Alright, our focus for learning for this lesson is I can multiply binomials using generic rectangles. I recognize that the area as a product is equivalent to the area as a sum. Alright, so a binomial, that's a new vocabulary word here, is a polynomial with two terms because we know that prefix bi means two. So some examples are x plus 5. That's a binomial. You have two terms. X is a term, 5 is a term. X squared plus 2, that would be a binomial because x squared is one term and 2 is one term. So we have two terms here. Here, 3x plus 7, 3x is a term, 7 is a term. So all of these are examples of binomials. Today what we're going to do is we're going to look at how we multiply binomials together using something called a generic rectangle. So here, x plus 2, the expression I have written here in red, is a binomial, and x plus 5 is also a binomial. We are going to multiply these two binomials together using what is called a generic rectangle. So the generic rectangle is what you see on the left-hand side of your screen. So when we're going to set up our generic rectangle, how we start with just a blank square like this with four little squares inside of it. We're going to take our first binomial, so this x plus 2, and we're going to put it across the top of our generic rectangle. Then we're going to take our second binomial, so the x plus 5, and we're going to put that down the side of our generic rectangle. Once we've written one binomial across the top of our generic rectangle and we've placed one binomial down the side, we're going to use multiplication to fill in the generic rectangle, kind of like how you would fill in a Punnett square in biology. So to figure out what you put in each box, you multiply the top of the box times the side of the box. So to figure out what goes here, we're going to multiply the top of the box, which is x, by the side of the box, which is x. So x times x gives us x squared. So in this first little square, we're going to put x squared. Again, to figure out what goes over here in this area, you multiply the top of the box, which is 2, times the side of the box, which is x. So 2 times x is 2x. All right, to figure out what goes down here, you multiply the top of the box, which we know is x, times the side of the box, which is 5. So x times 5 is 5x. And then to figure out what goes right here, you multiply the top of the box, which is 2, times the side of the box, which is 5. So 2 times 5 is 10. So essentially what we just did to fill in all of these four little squares inside our generic rectangle is we found the area of each square, because area is length times width. So when you're multiplying the top of the box by the side of the box, you're finding the area of each of these four little squares. Whenever we're using a generic rectangle, we can write the area of this generic rectangle as both a product and as a sum. So the area as a product is just the length of the box times the width of the box, or our original problem, x plus 2 times x plus 5. So when we have two binomials written together like this, that's how we express the area of this box as a product. To figure out the area of the box as a sum, we want to take all of these blue terms that we wrote inside of our generic rectangle, and we need to add them all together. So this is going to turn into x squared plus 2x plus 5x plus 10. So all we did in this first step is we took all of the blue numbers inside of our generic rectangle and we added them all together to find the area of the whole thing. Now that we have this written out, we're going to combine our like terms. So if we look here, x squared, there are no other x squared terms here, so this is just going to stay as x squared. Now 2x plus 5x, those are like terms because they both have an x, so we can add those together. That's going to give us 7x. And then 10 is our only constant, so here we're just going to have plus 10. So when we multiply these two binomials, x plus 2 times x plus 5, when we multiply those binomials together, our answer is x squared plus 7x plus 10. This is called a trinomial because it has three terms. X squared, let me get my highlighter here, x squared is a term, 7x is a term, and 10 is a term. So when we multiply a binomial together using a generic rectangle, our answer is a trinomial. So area as a product is equivalent to the area as a sum. Two different ways of writing the same expression. All right, here we're going to do another example of multiplying binomials. So here this says the quantity x minus 1 squared. We know that when we square something, we take everything inside the parentheses, this goes back to our exponent rules, and we multiply that entire quantity by itself. So x minus 1 squared is actually equal to the quantity x minus 1 times the quantity x minus 1. Now what I have right here is a binomial being multiplied by a binomial. So I know when I'm multiplying two binomials together, I need to use a generic rectangle. So again, we take our first binomial, x minus 1, and we put it across the top of our generic rectangle. Then we're going to take our second binomial, which is also x minus 1, and we're going to put that down the side of our generic rectangle. Once we place one binomial across the top of the generic rectangle and one binomial down the side, again, we're going to use multiplication to fill in our generic rectangle, kind of the same way that you would do a Punnett square in biology. So to figure out what goes in this first box right here that I'm going to highlight yellow, to figure out what goes inside this yellow box, remember we take the top of the box, which is x, and multiply it by the side of the box, which here is also x. So we're doing x times x, which is x squared. So x squared is what goes inside this yellow box. Then moving over here to figure out what I'm going to put in this green box, you take the top of the box, which in this case is -1. So when you have a negative sign here, we need to keep it with that 1. So we're going to do -1 times the side of the box, which is x. When we multiply those together, we get -1x. All right, to figure out what's going to go down here in my blue box, again, I take the top of the box, or the length of it, which is x, and I multiply it by the side of the box, which is -1. Because again, remember when you have this negative sign, you want to keep it with that 1. So x times -1 is going to give us -1x. And then finally, I need to fill in one more area here in my generic rectangle. So I'm going to make this one pink. So to figure out what goes in my pink box, we're going to take the top of the box, which is -1. Remember, we have to keep that negative sign with that. And we're going to multiply it by the side of this pink box, which is -1. A negative times a negative is a positive, so -1 times -1 gives us +1. So then we've filled in the generic rectangle. Once we fill in the generic rectangle, we aren't done. We need to combine the yellow box, the green box, the blue box, and the pink box together to write the area of this generic rectangle as a sum. So if I want to do area as a sum, I'm going to say this is x squared minus 1x minus 1x plus 1. Again, I just took the yellow, oops, that's not yellow. I took the yellow box, which was x squared, the green box, -1x, the blue box, -1x, and the pink box, plus 1, and I added them together to get my area as a sum. Now we are not done because now we need to combine our like terms. So x squared, I don't have any other x squared terms, so this is it's gonna stay as x squared. Negative 1x minus 1x is going to give us a negative 2x. And then we need to bring down our constant here, plus 1. And now we've multiplied together two binomials. So we multiplied x minus 1 times x minus 1. And our answer is a trinomial, x squared minus 2x plus 1. So what you're going to do now is you're going to do some practice multiplying binomials together. So we're going to do a delta math assignment. So you are going to complete the multiplying binomials delta math assignment that is posted on Google Classroom. This assignment is 3 parts. Each part has 5 questions. For the one part that looks like this, where you're multiplying two binomials together, so it's just going to give you problems like x plus 2 times x plus 5, you're going to write the work for those on the back of this notes paper.